Hi everybody, this is the first weekly trading review of T1H Trader. I'm just started learning how to trade, so this will be me analyzing the trades that I took every week and seeing how I can potentially improve when I enter the next week. Alright, so this is my week in summary. As you can see, I ended up negative 0.11R and I paid $25 on commissions. This is the dollar amount right here. This column is the net change that I took per trade. As you can see, the value is actually quite low, and this is because I just started trading, so I'm practicing proper money management. I don't want to blow up my account very quickly, and that's why I'm taking a very small share size whenever I enter my trades. So for each week, I will be going through my worst loss day and my best gain day, and let's just dive right into it. My worst loss day this week was actually on Thursday. I took 3 trades, TWLO. This is my first one. I like the TWLO trade I took was right here. You can see it right here. This was my entry point. I liked it because number one, it was above my gap entry idea. I was actually looking to take TWLO above 440, which is this line. It also had a nice controlled retracement downwards within 4 red bars, and it ended with a doji bar, as you can see right here. There are some slight negatives. The retracement is slightly more than I would have liked. It's about, this is the start and this is the end, so it was about 70 to 80% of the move up, which is slightly more than I would have preferred. And it also was a bit close to the market open. It wasn't at the market open, it was about 938 around here. This is 940, but it was still close enough that there could have been some spready or whippy kind of thing that could have stopped me out. Ultimately, I think that this was a decent trade. I would have taken it again if given the opportunity, so I don't really regret this trade at all. The SPY is here because you want to look for signs of relative strength or relative weakness. In this case, it's too early in the market to figure out whether or not it has any of these features. So that was the first trade. I lost 1R on this, eventually stopped me out right here a couple of minutes later, but it is what it is. Okay, my next trade again is on TWLO. In this case, I was actually looking to get a breakout above the 449 area. We can see that it's that the stock consolidates around here, this area. So I was looking to get in on this consolidation, and it had room back up about 1R back to the high of day over here. All in all, I think it was pretty good. The consolidation wise, it had resting volume. You can see that the volume relatively decreased from other areas. We also can see that it had a shakeout bar before the 449 area triggered right here, which made it better. Negative wise, I guess the main negative would be that I already took a failed buy setup here, but you shouldn't really let that affect your determination on whether or not the next trade is going to work. Again, I think that this was a pretty solid trade. I would have taken it again if given the opportunity. In this case, I think that it actually inched upwards here, as you can see around 10 AM. And the main reason why it failed is because the market, as you can see on the other side, the market tanked around 10 AM to 10:10, and you can see TWLO tanking with it and stopping us out eventually. So yeah, that was the second trade that I took on Thursday. Third trade that I took on Thursday was on STX. So STX, I was actually looking to get in above 73. So the pattern that I was trading was a 2-minute breakout. It was a 1-minute breakout right above here, as you can see right here. So all in all, I think that STX was pretty good as well. It had an initial 50% retracement, you can see right here, and then it consolidated nicely, going up, consolidates again, and therefore I think that it wasn't that extended, and it could possibly have reached 1R upwards. The negatives in this case is that you can clearly see that the stock is very whippy, very spready. You can see many overlapping bars throughout the entire chart. So that would have been the main negative against it. Overall, I think that, again, this was a pretty decent pattern. I don't regret taking it. And actually, I put in a 2-minute chart here because if you look at it, you can actually see it forming a sort of flag pattern right here. This is the entry point, and this would be the flag. So I entered, and eventually it stopped me out once more. And that was my worst loss day of the week. So now we get into Friday, which is my best gain day. So for Thursday, I actually lost 3 trades. So I stopped out all 3 times, and that would have been a negative 3R loss. Alright, so now we move on to Friday. Okay, Friday. PLTR, I actually entered this on a 5-minute breakout. You can see it right here. This is my breakout pattern. Yeah, a nice consolidation around the 28 area. Bottoming tails, slight resting volume, as you can see right here. And of course, you have room to move higher. And this was the next resistance mark that I saw on the hourly chart, which was around 29.50 area. So you have plenty of room to move all the way up here. Negatives wise, there actually wasn't that many. There was actually one that I saw, but it didn't really count because it occurred after I entered. So this would have been it. As you can see, it had a small peekaboo above the 28 area before it. And by that point of time, I was actually already in it, so there wasn't much that I could do. But you typically don't want to see a peekaboo like this on such decent volume, because it suggests that, you know, the stock might actually reverse direction. In terms of relative strength or relative weakness, I guess you could say that in the first 20 minutes, the market was moving down, but PLTR was actually having a strong consolidation around the 28 area, and so it was showing decent signs of relative strength. So I took PLTR here, and I think my stop loss was 27.30 under this bar right here, 27.33 if I remember correctly, and it gave me 2R. So if you go back to the trade review, you can see that I actually made 1.5R on PLTR because of my management strategy, although it eventually went 2R. Okay, next trade is MGA. So for MGA, I took this as a market open momentum 3-bar move. You can see it right here. This was my entry. Positives is that it does have nice igniting volume. You can see that the volume spikes and that it ignites over the high of day, which is nice. I think that the stop was under the 2nd bar, so it was a large enough stop for me personally, even though it was at the market open. And in terms of the chart isn't here, but if you look at the daily chart of MGA, I think that it actually had room to go about 1R, which was around 83.30, and that it didn't really have that much room to hit 2R because it would have exceeded its average trading range. So that was definitely a concern. Ultimately, I managed to get 1R on this. I had 1R right here at the tip of this bar, you can see, and eventually it stopped me out where I entered. So I had a nice 0.5R gain on MGA. In terms of relative strength and relative weakness, there really isn't much you can say, especially since I took MGA so early in the market at 9.34. Alright, next trade is RXT. Okay, so RXT, and I think that this is synonymous with what real life trading actually is that you see this 2-minute momentum 3-bar move right here at the market open, and I wanted to take it. But the problem is that I set my order in and I actually didn't manage to get filled. Eventually hit 1R right here and it stopped us out right here. So I wanted to get in on it, and I tried. I put in my order, but I couldn't get in on it, which was quite sad, I think. It was a nice 3-bar play, nice igniting volume. Volume on the 2nd bar was perhaps a little bit too high, but it was pretty textbook. And yeah, it's just a pity that I didn't get filled. Okay, my next trade is again on RXT, and this time what I took was a 1-minute breakdown. You can see right here, right here there's a consolidation area, consolidated around the $22 mark. My main concern here again was that there's this massive volume spike that just came out of absolutely nowhere. That's definitely a concern. But in terms of whether you have room to reach 2150, 2140, definitely had room. So you could hit at least 1R before you could potentially make the bounce back. Ultimately, I think that this pattern was pretty nice. It didn't have anything in terms of relative strength or relative weakness. One other thing that I should mention is that after the stock set a double bottom, you can see one bottom here and one bottom here, I figured that it was time to get out of the stock, and so I didn't actually wait for it to stop me out at $22. I actually moved my stop to about 2180, and I left and I exited my position at 2180 instead of waiting for the full stop out at $22. And that's because whenever you see a double bottom like this, it's actually a sign that this is a very strong area of support and that the stock is probably going to be bouncing higher after that. Alright. Next trade that I took was AMAT. And AMAT was actually a full stop out. So I went on AMAT as a normal looking buy setup. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4 bars down, had a change of color bar at the last bar before triggering you in. So and the retracement was about 50%, and it was pretty close to this area that I drew over here. So while this area would have been considered resistance, when it comes back down, it's actually considered an area of support. So you could technically argue that it was bouncing off a support level right at this area. The daily wasn't extended, and it definitely had room to hit 1R on the prior pivot high. So overall, I think that this was pretty good. It was a decent looking buy setup, and again, if given the opportunity, I would definitely consider taking it again. In terms of relative strength and relative weakness, taking something so close to the market open makes sure that you can't really tell whether or not it has this relative strength or relative weakness. So yeah, so I think that was the last trade that I took for the day, and overall I ended up the day 1.5R up. I lost one on Amat right here. I added half on RXT on this breakdown that I took. I missed this RXT 2-minute momentum move that I could have gotten another half R on. I took this momentum move on MGA, so that was a half R again. And this thing actually went all the way up. For PLT, I went all the way up to 2R, and because of my management strategy, I got 1.5R. So overall, I ended Friday 1.5R up, and I ended Thursday negative 3R down. Tuesday and Wednesdays, I don't have the charts here, but overall I ended those days up, I think about 1.8R, 1.4R, right? And that is why I ended the week with negative 0.11R. Yeah, so that would be my trade review for this week. I think that I did a decent job managing my trades, and I'm definitely looking forward to getting back at it again next week. And I hope to see you again when I go through my trade reviews. I really hope that you learned something. If you did, please like the video and subscribe. And yeah, see you guys again next week.